like it.
Yeah, it just looks like a pretty standard junk. Well, a pretty
not standard junk. Yeah, it's got lots of cool stuff going on.
Yeah, he does.
All right, so let's talk about David McDarby's list. That's the one I want to talk about. So, Bant Geist is what we're calling it. But they're okay. Well, I already talked about the deck, so we'll just go ahead and start with the match.
Yeah, it looks like Dave won the roll, led off with Breeding Pool, countered by Overgrown Tomb.
He's got a Syncopate on the ready. It looks like he has a reasonable number of lands in hand, though, so hopefully he'll draw into some gas. The Junk Reanimator guy didn't have a mana creature on turn 1 because he's not playing any, and I think that was one thing that I forgot to point out. This Mulch here, going to get Syncopated, David trying to keep him from filling his graveyard, and hopefully keep him from drawing lands. And a Peeled Geist-Saint Trap looks like it's going to be a problem.
Perfect. That's a perfect draw for Dave McDarby. Yeah. He just counters whatever Justin plays turn 2, slams the Geist turn 3.
That was one of the biggest reasons why I wanted him to play... got that Sphinx's Revelation off the Sin Collector. That's pretty good.
Wow.
And he put up a blocker for the Geist-Saint Trap. David just got lands in hand. Drew Advent of the Worm. That's a pretty good clock to have, especially now that he has the Moorland Haunt too. So if his Geist dies, he's going to have a way to make a creature. But what I was saying was one of the reasons why we put Syncopates in the deck, we're playing 3. I kind of wanted to play 4, was so that you could counter something on turn 2 and then play Geist on turn 3. And if your opponent didn't have a 1-drop, then you're just really far ahead, especially if you're on the play. Unfortunately, the Sin Collector took the wind out of his sails, but the top deck on the Advent of the Worm is pretty sweet. I might have flashed into block here. I don't know why he didn't really do that, since he does have the Advent.
Yeah.
Or no, I think, is this in mid-combat? I can't actually tell. I thought that they wrote down life total changes, but I could be wrong.
Not sure. We'll find out from our table judge for you guys, but we'll see. Oh, okay. Looks like in response to Advent, Justin's going to blink his Sin Collector, see the 2 lands that Dave has in hand.
Yep. So, yeah, he's only had 1 draw since the Sin Collector hit last time, and the Advent of the Worm was it, so...
Yeah, kind of a weird Resto Angel. Justin has to know that Dave has no targets for that. I would rather see him do that during the draw step, maybe.
Well, if it was during combat, he just didn't want his Sin Collector to die, so that's... I mean, it's pretty reasonable. If he decides to attack with the Advent of the Worm token, I think that Justin's probably going to double block. It'll trade for both the creatures, though, and that'll potentially let Geist start coming through. David just sort of sitting on lands, but... Oh, apparently the Worm was flashed in after attacks, but before the block, so that was mid-combat.
Okay.
All right.
So Justin draws another land and slams a Tusk.
That's bad. So gaining 5 life here, going to put him well out of range of dying over the next 2 turns. David's still just sitting on the pair of lands. Not a whole lot going on. Snapcaster Mage on Advent of the Worm. I like that juice. That's some juice right there.
Yeah, and I can really see why you like this Bant Geist deck.
Yeah.
So much play between these Snapcasters, all these instants. Justin has to worry about so many different cards coming from Dave.
Yeah. Advent of the Worm doesn't match up that well against the Thragtusks. Maybe that's going to end up being a problem. It does look like he has a Tristani Summoner in hand, though, so in a couple turns, we might see some fireworks. Oh, and there's a Cavern of Souls, too, so no Snapcaster Syncopate to stop it either if he wants, if he names the right card on Cavern, so which I assume he is. He seems like he's playing pretty well so far. There's a Ranger's Path that's going to ramp him right up to the mana he needs to cast his bigger spells, and I don't know if he might attack with just the Restoration Angel here, but he might not attack with anything just for fear of the Geist, and the Snapcaster on the Worm is a pretty big game.
Yeah, if I'm Justin right here, I'm feeling pretty comfortable with my position. I'm just looking to get that Summoner down.
Yeah. All right, so I assume that David's going to end of turn here, make a Worm, and then probably attack with both Worms, try to get in some damage. He may even battle with the Geist, but since he does have the Moorland Haunt, because right now he just needs to try to kill Justin before Justin's able to start playing his bigger spells and then, getting Unbear Rights after his creature dies. But he may not want to try to trade off in combat because that'll turn on Unbear Rights that are in Justin's hand. So it's a predicament for sure. Unsummons, those type of effects are kind of dead against the Thragtusk. But they can, bounce Snapcaster Mage, mid-combat after he chump blocks a Thragtusk or something. Maybe be able to rebuy the Syncopate, or perhaps just, rebuy a Simic Charm or something. But looks like he's just going to turn everything sideways, try to get in as much damage as possible.
Yeah, I would say one of the coolest plays for Unsummon right here for Dave is to bounce the Thragtusk once he's blocked. That way it doesn't fuel the Unburial Rights, takes up 5 of Justin's mana, and still gets in for trample damage.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. So it looks like he's trying to trade a Sin Collector for a Geist. This is actually going to turn on Simic Charm for David if he has it to just pump his Geist. He's going to end up dealing 11 points of damage to Justin, and then the Worm is going to trade with the Thragtusk and then deal 2 more trample. So looks like he's just going to unsummon his Geist after blocks before combat damage. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 13 damage. Could put Justin at 7, I believe. And then it looks like Thragtusk's going to trade off, get a Beast, and then he's going to probably just replay Geist and pass turn.
Yep, and David just right here has to hope that Justin has no Unburial Rights.
Yeah. That would be bad, but he does have, I don't know, 10 power worth of Gyres or whatever, so that's pretty bad too. Let's get a Beast token for Justin before we continue.
And here we go, 1, 2, 3, Geist of St. Traft.
Yep. And David playing out the last card in his hand, which should have been known from the Sin Collector earlier, I believe, but perhaps not. So Tristani Summoner here, looking pretty good. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, it's weird. The first time I saw that card, it really reminded me of Wormskin Forger. I don't know if you remember that one, a Mirrodin card. 7 for a 2/2. You get 3+1/+1 counters.
Oh yeah, yeah.
But this one a little more powerful. You get an entire army.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's funny that you know, Tristani Summoners actually just head over heels better than the Paragon that they made. Yeah. So he put Cavern on Beast, I guess, because he's obviously not afraid of a counterspell this turn, and he wants future Thragtusk to resolve and his Craterhoof Behemoth if he happens to draw it. But it looks like he's probably going to play the Summoner here. That's what that is, right? I'm not just completely mistaken on the picture.
No, Tristani Summoner. Yep, that's him. When it comes into play, you get a 2/2 Vigilance, a 3/3, and a 4/4 Trample.
Yeah, that ain't bad.
Not too bad.
I wonder if we brought 4/4 Rhino tokens. That might be okay. We did. Our director says big thumbs up. So this is pretty bad for David. He's at 5. He does have, you know, the 4 power with the Geist coming over, and Justin attacked with everything, so he doesn't really have a defensive flyer. So if David's able to draw a Simic Charm here to just Giant Growth his way out of the game, that's going to be insane.
Yeah, so he has a couple draws that just win it for him. 3 Simic Charm, 1 Divine Deflection would just win it for him.
Oh man,
that would be a sick
one. that was a last minute addition that he wanted. I actually told him not to play it, but if he peels that one's going to be sick.
So at least 4 outs just to win. Plenty more to keep the game going. He has Azorius Charms. He has Unsummon. Runechanter's
Oh,
Pipe.
they couldn't find the Rhino, Jesse. Sorry, buddy.
Weren't prepared for the Horncollar's Chant combo decks, I guess.
Yeah, no kidding. No, weren't prepared for Tristani Summoner. Dude, I've liked that card a lot, especially with Restoration Angel. Oh, I drew a land. All right, so David drew a land here. There's no real way he can get through. He had an option. If he drew Unsummon and Justin actually blocked poorly, what could have happened was that he attacks with a Trampling Worm, and then once Justin blocks with, 4 power worth of guys or something, he can unsummon one of his opponent's creatures and then only have to assign lethal trample damage to one of them and then trample over for the rest. He only needed to get through 3 extra damage along with the Geist of St. Traft, but it looks like Justin's just going to make some blocks here, and then David's going to be dead.
Yeah, Dave had a good number of outs this turn, but instead just peeled another land. He got pretty flooded this game. Looks like 6 spells, 8 lands, something like that. And not what you want against this aggressive draw from Justin.
Right. Him getting his Sphinx's Revelation Sin Collector, I think, was the biggest part of this game that actually didn't seem like that important early in the game, but now that the turns have progressed, like David flooded out, and if he had had the Sphinx's Revelation, I think he would have won pretty easily.
Right. And it was pretty interesting. Justin blocked there, just like you said. He blocked 4/4 and 1/1, so he could have unsummoned the 4/4, trample over, gotten in for that kill.
Yep. All right. So for sideboarding, let's go ahead and take a look at these lists. So I think David is definitely going to be bringing 2 Purify the Graves. He has a Negate, which he might want just because it's pretty decent against like Grizzly Salvage, Farseek, and stuff like that. And he saw Ranger's Pass. Well, I'm sure he's going to assume that Justin has a lot of ramp spells in his deck, so he's relying on that sometimes to cast his spells. I don't think he really wants a Azorius Charm in this matchup, so you can probably side some of those out. Voice Resurgence is also not that great. Like, it's just a 2/2 that sometimes you get like a 2/2 afterwards or whatever. Other than that, not a whole lot. Maybe a Detention Sphere, maybe some Tamios to tap down Thragtusk, but we'll see.
Yeah, it seems like Dave's deck is pretty well set up. He just really wants to get those Voice of Resurgence out of there. Like you said, it's at its worst against Jund, against the Junk Reanimator.
Yeah, basically just mid-range green decks. Like, it's insane against the aggro decks, insane against the control decks when you're just trying to play a spell every turn and your opponent isn't able to, counter your stuff. The Divine Deflection, I think he might actually want to keep that in, because sometimes in the late game it could just be Fireball. If Justin, attacks with a bunch of guys, he just prevents all the damage, shoots it at Justin's dome, and even if he's like attacking with an Alpha Strike, and Justin goes to block, he can do the same thing, because it just is a huge shield of damage to all of your stuff, and just fireballs the opponent, or can kill a creature if necessary. But the sideboard for Justin, he has an Obsidian that looks like it's probably going to come in. An Acidic Slime to go up to 3, I believe, after main. One of the interesting cards that he has in his deck is Teysa, Envoy of Ghosts. I don't think he's going to be bringing that in, but that seems sweet. He's got a lot of interesting new cards in his deck. I really like his the way he's going with that. The biggest thing, I think, though, is that he has 3 Renounce the Guilds, which is definitely going to come in to help deal with Geist of St. Traft.
Yeah, actually, I stopped by the dealer booth before the tournament, and they said that a lot of the cards are selling decently well, but the biggest seller is Renounce the Guilds.
Yeah, when I first saw that card, I was very, very impressed with it. It gives you outs as a white deck to a variety of problematic threats. Obsidat's a huge problem. Falconwrath Aristocrat, Boros Reckoner sometimes, if you're a red-based removal spell deck. But along with Snapcaster Mage, it can just do a lot of work, Obviously, Justin not playing Snapcaster Mage, but still doing the job against Geist of St. Traft, since it is a sacrifice effect as opposed to something that would target.
Right. And something interesting about Justin's deck that you just pointed out, Grim Backwoods.
Oh, yeah. He can get back a kind of a strange one. Grim Backwoods is a land that allows you to bring back a creature from your graveyard at random, I believe. When you only have one guy, it's just returns a creature to your hand. But when you're flooded out, it's really good, and it seems like that's one of the things that can happen to Justin, where he floods out, since he has Farseek, Grizzly Salvage, Mulch, and Ranger's Path. But interesting one of. I would personally rather have Gavany Township, which it doesn't look like he has any in his list, but he isn't playing the 1-mana creatures to accelerate. He just has, Farseek as well as Ranger's Path to accelerate. So, an interesting take on Junk Reanimator for sure.
Yeah, Gavany Township, a pretty big game with Tristani Summoner, too.
Okay. All right, looks like we're done sideboarding, shuffling up for game 2. David going to be on the play again.
Actually, one more interesting card that I wanted to point out from Justin Cruz's sideboard, Crypt Incursion. Not good for this matchup, but if you're unfamiliar, 3-mana instant, exiles all creature cards from target player's graveyard, and then you gain 3 life for each one that was removed. So a nod to the mirror match right there.
Yeah, that's interesting. I like that card. So yeah, I mean, if it's an instant too, right? So if your opponent goes for an Unbear Rights, not only do you get to hit the card that they're targeting, but any future targets that they could have milled over with their Grizzly Salvage or Mulch or what have you.
And some life for value.
Yeah, gaining the life, not as relevant. I know that Thragtusk is one of the weaker cards in the mirror. The life gain not incredibly relevant. All you want to do is just grind your opponent out with things like Acidic Slime and Angel Serenity. Yeah.
Yeah, I really hope we get to see Dave McDarby win with this Divine Deflection. I have a soft spot in my heart for that one.
I think I may have fainted if he had peeled it on the last turn in the last game, because he was so adamant about wanting to play one. He got off the phone with one of his friends from back home, and he was just like, "Yeah, I don't know why, but I want to play one Divine Deflection." It's just.
There's nothing more fun than the double fireball. When they think you're dead, when they say there's no
your opponent's like,
have.
GG, attacks with all his guys, and you're like, yeah, GG, kill you. Yeah.
Thanks for playing.
Yeah. So David here on the play with the Breeding Pool. Looks like he's got Syncopate, Azorius Charm. Didn't opt to side out the Azorius Charms. Perhaps he just wanted a couple of things to help cycle, dig him through lands. But it looks like he has enough mana, which is nice. And I think whatever this is going to get Syncopated. Yeah. So Syncopate on the Farseek, followed by a turn 3 Geist. Again, not too bad. Gonna take 2 from a shock here, down to 18.
Yeah, Justin Cruz has to have a play this turn. That Geist is just going to start taking chunks out of his life total here.
From what it looks like, he's just gonna Farseek, and he's just gonna get domed for 6.
Wow.
Yeah, so I mean, this is the plan for McDarby. You know, he really wants to just syncopate whatever the guy casts on turn 2, cast Geist on turn 3, and it looks like it's going to plan since Justin didn't really have the Lingering Souls or anything to follow up. And you know, Renounce the Guilds would have been insane there, but you know, opting for the Farseek just didn't have any other options, and he drew pretty much the nuts. Syncopate for the Thragtusk or whatever that's coming down next turn. Not bad.
Yeah.
Not bad.
Dave McDarby is pretty much going to syncopate any spell Justin plays unless it's like a Farseek or a Ranger's Path, something like that. He won't. He's just looking to end this game as soon as possible.
Yep. So David actually here is thinking about playing his Shockline untapped, which I think he definitely should. The life not going to matter too much, but he has the option now to Snapcaster Mage to syncopate for 1, should Justin be reliant on a 5-drop to stabilize, and that allows him to add 2 more points to the board, which conveniently with Geist of Saint Shaft is exactly 20 over the 3 attacks. Looks like that's an Acidic Slime, and that's going to get Snapcaster syncopated. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the alternate art from F&M, I believe.
Yeah, I think that's a slime.
All right, so now we get to attack for 8, putting Justin down to 6, and you can see how out of control this deck can get in a hurry. He's got a Syncopate on backup and an Advent of the Worm, so even if Justin goes Cavernous Souls into Thragtusk, David can still go Advent of the Worm, still have an incredible amount of pressure in play.
Is this the point in time where if you're Dave McDarby, you just put your hand face up on the table and say, can you beat it?
Yeah. I mean, I do that sometimes when we're low on clock, but they have a million years, so definitely wouldn't just want to give away free information about my hand.
Right.
Let it know, like, also just like letting him know that he kept in Azorius Charm would be like something that you wouldn't want. I know that you were just joking. I'm not trying to say. I'm not trying to say. So it looks like an Obsidian Ghost Council is gonna get the wag of the finger there.
No, buddy.
No.
Exiled.
All right, so it looks like you're dead to this Geist of Saint Shaft, buddy. All right.
So that was a quick game.
Yeah, and you know that's how we drew it up in the car. You know, we just want to syncopate on turn 2, cast a Geist on turn 3, and then use unsummons and things like that to follow up. Didn't really go to plan in game 1 because you know the Sphinx Revelation was taken with the Sin Collector and we flooded out a little bit, but that game looked really smooth. Very impressed with the deck.
So did you guys have a plan for if you don't draw Geist of Saint Shaft?
Nope.
Oh boy.
Yeah, so I mean that's the big thing. Like all the decks that play Geist of Saint Shaft, you know, we don't have Ponder, we don't have any great card selection. So there are some matchups where we will play out a lot like Bant Flash, where we'll just use like counter spells, maybe an Azorius Charm or something early to get us to the point where we can start casting Advent of the Worm. You know, but against the Thragtusk decks, it's basically just Geist or bust.
Right.
You know, I wouldn't be surprised if David is going to be aggressively mulliganing to try to find the Geist, at least to 6. It's not as powerful on the draw, just simply because if Justin resolves a Mana Accelerator, it's going to allow him to cast, you know, like his 4s and 5s like a little bit earlier. David's not really going to have that turn to cast Geist without a counterspell backup, and he doesn't really like the unsummon effects against a lot of the creatures in Justin's deck. So.
Right. If you're just joining us now, I'm Zach Hall, joined by Todd Anderson, and we're coming to you live from the Star City Open Series here in Charlotte. This is round 1. You're watching Dave McDarby on the left battle against Justin Cruz on the right.
Yep.
They're going to game 3.
Yep. Dave McDarby took down game 2 in impressive fashion with Geist of Saint Shaft and a couple syncopates. Justin's deck didn't draw Cavern in the second game, so I think that was probably the big difference. If he had a Cavern of Souls for his Acidic Slime, would have put David stuck on 3 lands, so he wouldn't have been able to cast his Advent of the Worm, and he might not have even had a way to get the Acidic Slime off the table. David also would have been stuck with a Sphinx's Revelation in hand too, with just 3 lands. So, Cavern of Souls obviously a game changer against any sort of blue-based deck with counterspells. David's especially, since his removal spells of choice are just Unsummon and Simic Charm, those kind of effects, as well as Azorius Charm. So cards like Acidic Slime and Thragtusk are pretty good against him.
Yeah, pretty hard to Azorius Charm the Acidic Slime, unless you're about to win.
Yeah, pretty hard to Azorius Charm a Thragtusk unless you're Brad Nelson playing for top 8 of an SCG Open, which I saw him do, and I just shook my head. It was disappointing, but... I really want David to have brought in his Tamios in this matchup, since Justin doesn't really have a good way to deal with them. Being able to tap down, the annoying creatures like Thragtusk and Acidic Slime, so you can get in with your Geist, as well as if your opponent has Lingering Souls going and starts attacking you with things, just being able to draw, 3 cards or something just seems really good when all you want to do is just draw more ways to get your Geist through. Definitely looking forward to that. I really hope he did. I would like to talk to him after the match, but maybe I don't think we can get him in or anything, but that would be sweet.
I think if Dave has figured out that his opponent has no elves, he'll have brought in Tamiyo. If not,
yeah. I mean, he saw Farseek, he saw Ranger's Path, so I think it's safe to assume that he figured that out. David's a smart character. I like David a lot. He's a cool guy. All right, so we got some action going on over here. Overgrown Tomb into a Mulch. So no Syncopate this time for David, since, only has 1 land in play.
Right. Ooh, 3 lands off the Mulch. Nothing with flashback in the graveyard.
Now, he is going to have to discard. Only discards the Unburied.
How about that?
Can we get what card or what other card that was not a land that is in his graveyard? Because there's a lot of glare over there. There we go.
I think it might be a Sin Collector.
No, that's a Teysa.
Oh, wow.
He brought in Teysa.
Wow.
Yeah. So I think Teysa is whenever you're dealt damage, does it destroy the creature? Is that her second ability?
Yeah,
I think she has does she have protection from creatures or protection from red?
She has protection from creatures. She has a no mercy effect on her. We're gonna get it up on the screen for you in a second.
Oh, so it's 4, and so David actually has to get it on screen as well. Yeah, so she's a 7-drop. I think she's a 4/4 protection from creatures and no mercy. And if you don't know what no mercy is, it's an enchantment. Whenever you're dealt damage by an opposing creature, it destroys that creature. There we go. And you get a 1/1 flyer. Wow. So a little bit better than no mercy.
Value.
Yeah. So, and she has Vigilance too, so that's a pretty big game. David's going to definitely need to hold up for either Purify the Grave or Syncopate once Justin gets to 4 mana. So this could be bad in a hurry.
Yeah, once Justin has that card in play, all Dave can really do about it, he can Azorius Charm it to the top of the deck, which is really good. He can
Unsummon and Simic Charm it. Both those are fine, once he gets it back to his hand, though, Justin doesn't really have a way to discard cards other than mulching into, going up to 8 cards or so. So, he's going to have to ramp up to 7 again, and then David can just Snapcaster Unsummon. So it's actually not that devastating if, David just has any way to get it off the board for a turn.
Right.
So back to the game.
Seems like what David really needs here is a little bit of pressure. Oh, and that's not going to help.
It's actually not that bad. He can Syncopate the Sin Collector here, which I think he should do, and then probably just wants to cast Geist the next turn. If Justin reanimates the Teysa, it's not actually that big of a deal. Like, David doesn't have to attack. The 4 damage a turn isn't going to be that strong of a clock, and I think he just really needs to resolve his Geist of Saint Traft, and then he can figure out a way to deal with Teysa after that.
Right. And there's the Geist, just like you thought. We'll see if
Renounce the Guilds. Ooh. That's the backbreaker. That's gross.
Yeah, for a deck that's as all in on the Geist as David's is.
Yeah. He does have an Advent of the Worm in hand, and it looks like a Temple Garden, so he's going to be able to apply some pressure, but that's gross. That's all there is to it.
Boom.
And boom goes the dynamite. I wanted to say that for so long, not gonna lie.
Oh man, say it every round.
All right, deal. You sold me. All right, so looks like David actually did draw the Unsummon, which is nice. Ooh, and a second Geist. That's also pretty insane. Grizzly Salvage in the turn. Hopefully he's gonna dig for Angel Serenity. Acidic Slime is gonna be problematic as well. Although, if he brought in Teysa, I can only assume that he wants to put Teysa into play. So that might be his plan here, since he doesn't have a second Renounce the Guilds, but. If he does, he could just Acidic Slime the Hallowed Fountain, and that would put David in a pretty bad spot.
Yeah, Dave, despite all the dual lands, he only has 1 blue source here, and yeah, it looks like that's what Justin's going for.
Yeah, so he's getting his Hallowed Fountain. A lot of top decks here to help him out here. The Sun Petal Grove, definitely not one of them. Looks like he can still cast Advent of the Worm. I think he has a pair of them in his hand, so not in that bad of a position as long as he draws a blue source within a turn or two. Umbera Rights here on a Teysa, without David drawing a blue mana is going to be pretty rough.
Yeah, and this game's quickly slipping out of control for Dave McDarby, because every turn that goes by is a turn that Justin gets to build the 7 lands.
Yeah.
So even if Dave can bounce it. Justin can just replay it.
Yeah, he's just going to have to unsummon it multiple times. So it looks like there's an Obzidot in hand. I'm not sure what was named on the Cavern of Souls. It looked like Beast again, but I don't understand. I guess there's no way he can counterspell this turn, so there's no reason to name Advisor or Spirit, if you will. I always name Advisor just because that's the spicy one.
Way cooler.
Yeah, so gonna take some beats here from the Acidic Slime. I assume, is he blinking out the Obzidot? That seems gross.
Wow.
Yeah.
So Dave McDarby's going to get a free swing with a Beast token, with a Geist, and with an Angel.
Yeah, that seems good. So, okay, so he actually doesn't have a second Advent of the Worm. Every spell in his hand now is blue. And I don't know why he wouldn't just attack for an extra 5 points of damage here. I mean, I guess he wants to block Obzidot potentially, but I don't think that that's the way you're going to win the game. Like, you just have to try to race your opponent, and if he wants to blink his Obzidot out, I'm more than happy to just, race him if I'm attacking with a Geist of St. Traft and a Worm token.
Right. It seems like Dave's best plan, where there was maybe to just go all in, hope Justin reanimates, hope you draw blue source for your unsummon.
Yeah. I mean, he does even have Unbearer, right? So even if he trades with Obzidot, he could just Unbearer Rights the Obzidot again, and you're in the exact same spot you were last turn. The Teysa, like, if he decided to reanimate that instead, all you need to draw is a blue source, and then you're able to potentially just race and kill your opponent.
But there is the trade. So Advent of the Worm trades with Obzidot.
Yeah. So that was one of our biggest concerns with this deck is the mana base, because you do have a double green spell in your blue-white control deck, basically, since, Advent of the Worm is a little strenuous, and the Acidic Slimes from Reanimator always take a toll on the control decks, and it just so happens that David drew 4 of his green-white duels and only 1 of his blue-white duels, so he's in a little bit of trouble here.
Right.
Well, he drew Hallowed Fountain.
There's one of them.
Yeah. So she has protection from creatures, and so he can just unsummon it, attack for 6. That'll put Justin to 12, and he can potentially just replay Teysa next turn, but then David also has not only a Simic Charm, but he still has a Azorius Charm, and a Syncopate potentially if he draws another blue to be able to bounce and also counterspell on the way back, since the Cavern of Souls is on Beast.
Now, if you were Justin Cruz, would you have reanimated your Obzidot or your Teysa there?
I don't know. I mean, that's a pretty tough call. Like, if you think that Teysa is good in the matchup, I don't think he's actually seen an unsummon the entire match, right? Like or a Simic Charm.
One game one, I think, but no Simic Charm.
Sure. Oh yeah, because he bounced his own Geist of St. Traft. So, I mean, he can just assume that if Teysa is good, like, he just wants to get into play. Like, if he brought it in thinking it was good, there's no reason he would put Obzidot into play over that. Since it does help protect him from a Geist, it can generate multiple spirits from a Geist attack if he just lets them both die, take 6 and make 2 1/1s and kill both the creatures. Obzidot, though, does gain a bunch of life. It's pretty hard for David to deal with, but he's not a Supreme Verdict deck, so it's not like Obzidot's doing anything more than just draining and attacking. So.
Right. So Dave McDarby, untapped Hallowed Fountain. He'll take 2, going to 10.
It's possible he just passes turn here, and once if Justin decides to block, or sorry, attack, then he could have just Azorius Charm, but I think he's just going to try to be aggressive, attack for 6, and this is one of the reasons why I really wanted to attack with the Advent Worm like a few turns ago. He might have been facing down lethal this turn, though, so maybe that's bad. My planning for the turns involved not really realizing exactly what the life totals were, so...
So Justin Cruz draws another land, Grim Backwoods this time. He seems to be flooded. He has land.
Yeah, well, Tristani Summoner, that's going to be... I think, if he had that last turn, I definitely would have cast that instead of Teysa.
It's amazing how much more powerful Tristani Summoner is than these mythic 7-drops.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like a lot of the creatures from Dragon's Maze, they're big and flashy, but they don't really have good come-to-play effects. And Tristani Summoner just shows you how powerful these cards are that have these effects that, when they come into play, do X, Y, Z, versus cards that, when they come into play, they don't do anything. Teysa has a really sweet ability, but just the fact that, she doesn't really do a whole lot other than get bounced or die to a removal spell, whereas Tristani Summoner, makes 10 power. Ah, we found the Rhino token.
Thank goodness.
Nicely done, guys. Nicely done. I think this is going to be all she wrote for David. I don't think he can come back from that. Tristani Summoner, not really a card we were prepared to face. Not going to lie.
Yeah.
Seems good, though. I like that card a lot now.
Yeah, Dave has a Simic Charm, has an Azorius Charm, has a Syncopate, tons of instants, but really these aren't going to help him against this army.
Yeah, the Singleton Blue Mana really doing him in here. That Acidic Slime, pretty backbreaking. I think, so I actually really liked the line last turn of not attacking with Geist and potentially just, letting Justin attack with the Tesa. You have the option to Azorius Charm it then, but then you also just get to hold up for Syncopate for his next big play, as long as it's not a Thragtusk or a Crater of Behemoth. And then that allows you to counter that and then untap and be able to bounce it in consecutive turns if that's all he has to play for the next 2 turns, was just like Tesa, it gets bounced, Tesa, it gets bounced, and maybe potentially win with the Geist that way. It seems like here, though, I mean, he's only able to cast 1 spell, and it's not going to do the job.
Yeah, no matter which one he casts, he's still going to be facing down at least 8 power here. And being at 8 life, Geist of St. Traft in chump block mode or trade mode, not where you want to be.
Yeah. I mean, he can, bounce the Worm token with a Simic Charm, block the Tristani Summoner, and take 7. So, I mean, he's not dead, but I don't think he's going to be able to get out of this.
We'll see what Justin Cruz does, though. It's tough to play in the face of that much open mana. He might be scared of Restoration Angel. He could be scared of a few things here. Resto plus Unsummon. Might give David a little bit of a reprieve, depending on what he's afraid of.
Yeah, that's true. I feel like David had a few turns there where he could have cast things like Restoration Angel, things like Vanilla Worm. So I don't think, and I think David also missed a land drop earlier, so now that he played the Temple Garden, I think that's kind of a green light as well.
Right.
So yeah, it looks like David's just going to use Simic Charm in the Unsummon mode, get rid of the Rhino, take 7 down to 1, and then Justin's probably going to follow it. I think he drew Grizzly Salvage, so got a lot of options coming off the top here, but I don't think they're entirely relevant.
No, we'll see if he chooses to salvage. I see no reason not to, while Dave's tapped out of blue mana.
Or is that something else? It was a multicolor card, I guess. I mean, he's got a lot of yeah, there's a Tesa, a Salvage. Oh yeah, because he had the Tesa from earlier when it got unsummoned, so. Alright, a lot of options here. Maybe just slamming Tesa is better than, anything else. He has the option to pass the turn if he is afraid of something like a Supreme Verdict, Seems like he's tapping his lands a little incorrectly. Like, if he had taken maybe a couple damage from the shock line, he could have been a turn Grizzly Salvage. Although that could open him up to, maybe... I mean, he probably doesn't know what all is in David's deck. He could have lost to, like, a Giant Growth plus Simic Charm or something on the Angel, so...
Right. But anyways, there it is. Justin Cruz wins the match 2-1. Dave McDarby falls to 0-1.
We're going to have a good conversation at dinner about Tristani Summoner. Let me tell you.